What people call a group falling apart usually starts way earlier than anyone admits. It begins when one person stops playing along, not loudly, not with speeches, just quietly refusing to repeat lines that never made sense. You stopped laughing at jokes that felt off. You stopped agreeing just to keep peace. You stopped nodding when your gut said something was wrong. That alone rattles a tight group more than confrontation ever could. Groups like that survive on shared denial. One person choosing honesty exposes the cracks. At first, it looks harmless. Side glances, awkward pauses, a strange tone shift. Nobody says anything directly because that would mean acknowledging the problem. You feel it, though. The air changes. The pressure builds. This is where most people fold because the discomfort feels personal. It isn't. It's structural. When one person steps out of line, the system starts malfunctioning. You didn't attack anyone. You didn't recruit followers. You just stopped cooperating with something that didn't sit right. That's all it ever takes to start the collapse. The backlash never comes as honesty. It comes disguised as concern. Questions that aren't really questions. Advice nobody asked for. Warnings framed as help. This is the group trying to pull you back into place. The goal isn't understanding, it's compliance. Explaining yourself here feels tempting because it seems reasonable. It's a trap. Explanation gives them something to argue with. Silence gives them nothing. When you don't justify your choices, people start talking to fill the gap. Stories get made up. Motives get assigned. You hear about yourself through sideways comments and third parties. That part stings. It feels unfair to be misunderstood on purpose. Staying quiet through that phase is brutal because everything in you wants to clear the air. Don't. Clarity doesn't come from explaining to people committed to misunderstanding. It comes from consistency over time. Let them talk. Talking accelerates their own unraveling. As the pressure increases, behavior gets uglier. The friendly mask slips. People say things they can't take back. Loyalty tests appear. Lines get drawn. This isn't because you did something extreme. It's because the group senses loss of control. Control was never obvious before, because it was wrapped in belonging. Now that belonging feels conditional, and conditions are showing. Watching this happen while staying calm feels wrong. Like you're supposed to intervene. You're not. Intervening would stabilize something that needs to fall apart. When you stay steady, others start questioning quietly. Some pull away. Some get nervous. Some double down harder. All of this happens without you lifting a finger. The structure eats itself when it can't rely on automatic agreement. That's the part nobody talks about. Groups don't need enemies. They collapse when honesty becomes contagious. There's a moment when you realize how much emotional labor you used to do for everyone else. Keeping things smooth, absorbing tension, laughing things off. That labor stopped, and suddenly the whole thing looks fragile. People who relied on you to carry discomfort now have to face it themselves. That's when resentment shows up. Not because you hurt them, but because you stopped protecting them from themselves. This is where accusations start flying. Selfish, cold, changed. Let those words land and pass. Those labels are defenses, not truths. They're trying to make your boundary the problem, so they don't have to look inward. The calm response here isn't clever. It's basic. You don't argue. You don't counterattack. You don't explain your growth. You just keep living your life. That steadiness is what finally breaks the illusion that everyone was equal and honest all along. Silence does something powerful in moments like this. It turns the spotlight inward. Without your reactions, people hear themselves more clearly. Jokes don't land. Opinions hang awkwardly in the air. Someone finally notices how harsh things sound. Another starts questioning rules that were never questioned before. You don't see most of this directly. You hear about it later, if at all. That's fine. Your job was never to manage the fallout. Your job was to stop lying to yourself. Silence isn't passive here. It's active refusal to participate in dysfunction. The group doesn't know how to handle that because silence can't be debated. It just sits there, forcing everyone else to deal with their own noise. What's uncomfortable is realizing how much validation you used to get from fitting in. Even when it felt wrong, being included felt safer than standing alone. Losing that approval hurts. There's no way around it. You feel it in quiet moments, fewer messages, fewer invites, less certainty. This is the withdrawal period. It passes. On the other side is something better. Self-respect that doesn't depend on a room agreeing with you. Once that clicks, things change fast internally. Decisions get easier. You don't check the temperature of the group before acting. You trust yourself more because you've proven you can stand alone. That confidence isn't loud. It's settled. It doesn't need witnesses. Staying calm while others spiral is where real strength shows up. Not calm as in detached or smug. Calm as in grounded. You still feel anger. You still feel sadness. You just don't let those feelings drive your behavior. Watching people scramble to maintain control while you stay steady shifts the power without confrontation. People notice. They might not say it, but they feel it. The dynamic flips. You're no longer the one seeking approval. You're the one being watched carefully. That attention can feel strange. Don't let it inflate you. This isn't about being above anyone. It's about being done with nonsense. Stay boring. Stay consistent. Let the dust settle on its own. Letting life unfold without trying to control the outcome is the hardest part. You want closure. You want acknowledgement. You want someone to admit they were wrong. That rarely happens. Waiting for it keeps you stuck. Moving on without it feels incomplete at first. Then it feels free. You stop tracking who said what. You stop replaying scenes. You stop hoping for a moment that makes it all make sense. Instead, you build something better elsewhere. New routines, new connections, cleaner environments. The old group becomes background noise. Not because you're bitter, but because it no longer fits. That's growth without permission. The shock people feel later isn't about what you did to them. It's about what you did for yourself. You didn't attack the structure. You withdrew belief. That's what collapses systems built on fear and agreement. One person choosing clarity over comfort is enough to start a chain reaction. Others either wake up or tighten their grip. Either way, the illusion breaks. You don't need credit for that. You don't need recognition. Knowing you trusted yourself when it mattered is enough. Reclaiming yourself doesn't come with fireworks or relief right away. The first thing that shows up is discomfort. Real discomfort. The kind that hits when you realize how much of your life was built around keeping things smooth for other people. Once you stop doing that, the quiet feels loud. There's no one telling you what to think, how to act, or where you fit. That can feel like freedom one moment and panic the next. The old structure falling apart leaves space, and space is scary if you're used to noise. You start noticing how often you used to check reactions before making choices. That habit doesn't disappear overnight. It takes time to trust your own judgment again. During that time, things around you look messier than before. Relationships wobble. Routines change. Some days feel unsteady. That doesn't mean you made the wrong move. It means you stopped living on borrowed certainty. The mess isn't failure. It's the cost of getting your life back. Once you stop holding everything together, other people's behavior gets louder. Not because they changed, but because you're no longer buffering it. The jokes that crossed lines now sound worse. The control disguised as concern becomes obvious. The double standards stop being subtle. This can be shocking. You might catch yourself wondering how you didn't see it sooner. Don't beat yourself up over that. You were busy surviving. When you reclaim yourself, you're no longer numb enough to tolerate what you used to brush off. That awareness hurts, but it also protects you. You stop explaining bad behavior away. You stop making excuses for people who never made them for you. The falling apart you're witnessing isn't destruction. It's exposure. Things look worse before they disappear because they're finally visible. Social pressure ramps up right after you pull back. People feel the absence even if they can't name it. You're not as available, not as flexible, not as easy to sway. That shift creates tension. Some will test you, push boundaries, say things to see if the old version comes back. This is where restraint matters. Arguing here only reopens the door. Explaining here teaches them how to pull you back in. Staying quiet feels unnatural if you've always been the one to smooth things over. Let it feel unnatural. Growth often does. Silence isn't punishment, it's clarity. You're showing without words that access has changed. People either adapt or drift. Both outcomes are necessary. You can't reclaim yourself and keep every old dynamic intact. Something has to give. Projection gets heavier during this phase. When people lose influence, they rewrite the story. You'll hear that you've changed, become cold, become difficult. That's not feedback. That's discomfort talking. It's easier to blame you than to examine their role. Trying to correct these stories is exhausting and pointless. Anyone committed to misunderstanding will do it no matter how carefully you speak. Let the stories circulate. They burn out faster when you don't feed them. Meanwhile, your life gets quieter, fewer arguments, fewer explanations, less emotional cleanup. That quiet isn't empty, it's protective. It gives you room to rebuild on your terms, instead of constantly reacting to someone else's expectations. Toxic behavior doesn't survive long without cooperation. Once you stop reacting, it either escalates or collapses. Both outcomes look ugly, but neither is your responsibility. You didn't cause it. You just stopped enabling it. Watching someone spiral while you stay calm can trigger guilt. You might feel like you're abandoning them or being cruel. That's conditioning talking. You were trained to believe other people's emotions were your job. They're not. Staying steady doesn't make you heartless. It makes you grounded. Grounded people don't rush to fix chaos they didn't create. They let it reveal itself. Over time, this teaches you who respects boundaries and who only behaves when managed. Self-respect starts showing up in boring ways. You don't chase closure. You don't demand apologies. You don't need anyone to admit they were wrong. You move forward anyway. That choice feels anticlimactic if you expected some big moment of justice. Real self-respect isn't dramatic. It's practical. It shows up when you stop responding to messages that drain you. When you leave places that don't feel right without making a scene. When you protect your time without guilt. These small choices stack up. Life stops feeling like it's constantly pushing back because you're no longer pushing yourself into situations that don't fit. Staying calm while others lose control changes the power dynamic without confrontation. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to prove anything. Calm speaks for itself. People feel it. They might not like it, but they respect it more than noise. This calm isn't something you perform. It comes from knowing where you stand. When your actions line up with your values, reactions lose their grip. You're not scrambling to defend yourself. You're not panicking about perception. You let people think what they want. That freedom is unsettling at first. Then it becomes addictive in the best way. Letting situations expose themselves takes patience. It's tempting to speed things up with confrontation or ultimatums. Patience does more work than arguments ever could. When you step back, patterns repeat. People show who they are without your input. Promises get broken or kept. Respect shows up or doesn't. You don't need to call it out. You just take note and move accordingly. This makes decisions cleaner. You're no longer guessing. You're responding to reality instead of hope. That clarity reduces regret, because choices are based on what is, not what you wish things were. Internal stability becomes noticeable. Once external chaos loses its grip, problems still happen. Stress still exists. The difference is where it lands.